Hi everyone, and welcome to another resume writing video from Exceptional Tuition and Resumes. We are an Australian-based resume writing company specialising in nursing and construction-based resumes. For today's content, we're going to actually do a video on resume tips which will help you to prepare your resume for any particular role in any industry, because quite often we do receive job seekers that come to our company and require assistance to help them prepare for roles in the government, in private companies, and in all general industries. So we can help not only nurses and construction workers, but any job seeker that wants to set themselves apart and be competitive in the application market. So to commence our video, I would first like to cover the topic of applicant tracking systems and basically how you can create a resume which can beat this particular system. So an applicant tracking system is a software system that scans resumes and other job recruitment documents based on keywords and the formatting of your resume. So when you apply for a position, there is one of two ways that you may have your actual resume reviewed. So the first one may be that you're lucky and you go straight to a human resources manager or a HR assistant or a HR officer or some sort of recruiter that's physically going to look at your resume without going through an actual computerized system. So this is the easiest way, obviously, to get to your interview because it's all manually done. But for those job seekers, which sometimes can be unfortunate, that go through these applicant tracking systems, you need to make sure that your resume is technically friendly with the system so that it can recognize what you bring on your resume and that it can then go to the next stage of the recruitment process, okay? So I'm going to give you some tips in how you can beat the system if you are in the case of being put through the ATS system, as we call it, okay? And we want to give you tips on how to have a compliant resume, which is going to help you go through recruitment, okay? And eventually achieve an interview. So first of all, I'm going to actually explain to you what is an ATS compliant resume. So it's basically a resume that has keywords that match the job advertisement, okay? So when you're applying on a website like Seek, for example, you need to take special attention to the job descriptions to make sure that your resume actually matches the job description and the keywords which are in these job descriptions, okay? Because if you submit a resume that is totally general and doesn't have any interest on the job title and the particular kind of keywords or duties that your job requires, you are going to not get through the ATS system, okay? So you need to make sure that it's highly relevant and it highlights obviously your work skills and your experience, okay? So that's one of the most important tips, is make sure that your resume is going to be compliant and relevant to these systems. So what an ATS does is it scores candidates' resumes according to preset criteria, and it shows the recruiter who's on the other side of the system which candidates fit best to the actual advertised position, okay? So you need to think about, how are you going to present your resume in terms of the formatting and design, but also in terms of the content to make sure that you can get past the ATS. Okay, so to give you an idea, first things first is when you lay out your resume, make sure that the details is in reverse chronological order. So that means starting with your most recent job and counting backwards to your earliest position. But of course, you need to focus on the last 10 to 15 years as a maximum, because you don't want to give a really outdated resume. You just want to focus on what you can do right now when you're applying for your employment, okay? So it's important to make sure that you carefully structure your employment history in particular with these kind of dates that are reverse chronological. It's also important to make sure that you take notice of the certain skills and the qualifications that relate to that job advertisement. So as a simple guide, apply for jobs that you actually think you are qualified for and experienced in. There's no point as a job seeker applying for a job that you have no chance, because you are going in the bin. So let's be frank. Go for what you can do and what you would highly rank as a suitable applicant. Okay, that will help you to obviously get through the ATS when your resume goes through the scanning. To also make your resume compliant with an applicant tracking system, it's important to reply to a specific job offer, okay, and make sure that you understand that your resume suits that job and that you as a person suits the job, okay? So tailoring your resume is really, really essential, okay? So it means making sure that you're not just submitting some resume that's about, that you're just a team player or that you are just customer service, because that's not telling the actual system that you have industry experience, that you can do specific job duties that relate to the position that you're applying for. So make sure that your resume is focused and everything that tells me about that job is relevant to the role. So let's take, for example, for me, I have spent much of my career in training as a business trainer in the RTO and university sector. Okay, so for me, let's focus on the RTO sector. If I'm applying for a role as a business trainer, I need to make sure that the words of my resume are relating to the RTO sector and education and training and facilitation and curriculum development. Also, keywords will need to relate to how I build relationships with my learners or my students, or how do I present and deliver information which is relevant to my learners. So see how these words are really, really specific to the position of business trainer. When we speak of the word business, we will talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about business training, we talk about business mentorship, we talk about also assessment and training. Those keywords all must relate. So if an ATS looks at my particular resume from the education side of my career, it's going to hunt for these words, because they're not going to pluck someone that comes from, say, the primary school environment to work as a business trainer in the RTO sector, because it's irrelevant. So see the difference? You need to be very, very specific in how you present your resume and your keywords to make sure that matches the job description. And when I apply for a job description or a contract as a trainer, I will be looking for job descriptions that come either from Seek, because I like that website very much, or I will look at the websites of the direct, education RTO, and I will see, okay, this is what a typical, business trainer will do, and this suits what would be on Seek, and you match them together. But obviously relevancy is so important when it comes to beating the ATS, okay, the applicant tracking system. And you need to obviously make sure that when you are creating your resume, so we at Exceptional Tuition and Resumes can create an ATS compliant resume for you, because we understand what the systems are looking for. We know how to beat the systems. But for you, if you are deciding to write your own resume, you may need to actually hunt for an ATS compliant resume template, okay? So you can hunt for these. However, if you're not a writer yourself, we can do that for you and actually develop that resume. So make sure your resume is compliant and it has graphical elements that are friendly. Make sure that your fonts are also very readable, okay? So do not choose a font that is cursive in writing, okay? Avoid, if you can, underlining words as well. This makes it a little bit harder to read. Use simple text like Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman, Tahoma. All those basic texts that you think look boring is what these systems are looking for. And look, even for a recruiter, when they look at your resume without the system, they want to be able to read your resume. So choose a readable font. Size-wise, I would choose between 10 to 12 texts, because that's quite appropriate. It's not too big, not too small, and it fits nicely on an A4 page, okay? To make your resume friendly when you're going through the system, make sure that you label your resume sections in an understandable way. You can use bold headings, that's fine, that helps it to stand out. But make sure you separate your sections of your resume, because you're not writing a story, you're actually writing a nice, brief, description of who you are as a job applicant. You're breaking down yourself into different components and making it easy for the recruiter and the system to understand who you are and if you are suitable for the role. So make sure you use appropriate headings. Keywords obviously is important. So thinking about your job, using the example I used before as a business trainer. So what are your keywords in terms of skills? So it would be able to identify learning needs of students, able to work within an education team, mentoring and coaching students, things like that. Okay, so see, they're really specific words, but they're relevant to education within the RTO sector. So remember, RTO sector is a registered training organization. So for me, I have spent most of my career, along with running my own companies, in the education sector, because I love educating people of all ages. And I particularly love employment-based training like this, and also business-based training. Other aspects you need to consider when you have your ATS compliant resume is that you include the right skills for the position, okay? So again, make sure that you take notice of the job description and the advertisement, and you actually might like to copy some of those keywords, or you might be able to reword them, but make sure they still are so relevant to that particular job that you are applying for, okay? And always have in the back of your mind when you're optimizing your resume that there is a 50-50 chance that you will get an ATS looking at your resume at the beginning, or you may get the person recruiter straight up. So, your best bet is to prepare it for both options so that your resume has the best chance of progressing through the recruitment process. What else? So, it's good to think about, what is an applicant tracking system that's going to help you. So it's a system that basically scans your resume. It looks at the top part of your resume to the bottom, and it's like a highlighter, basically, looking for elements that are relevant. So your education needs to be relevant. So make sure that, when you're applying for a job, that you have the qualifications behind you. Don't fudge your resume. This is a simple tip for all of our job seekers. Be honest. Be honest in who you are, okay? If you're in an interview and someone asks you a question, be honest and transparent, but obviously take into account that you need to be as positive as you can. Make sure that you focus heavily on your skills and your work experience when you have your ATS compliant resume, because these are the elements that are going to be coming up in the scan if you don't get a manual review initially. Other tips to help you with an ATS friendly resume, so one that's going to pass the system and get you through, is create standard resume section headings. Okay, so don't get too fancy with the headings. Just be, like professional experience, education and training. These are things you expect people are going to hunt for when they look at your resume. So just put them in. Don't make it too fancy and over the top. Don't use tables and complex formatting, because this makes it physically hard for the ATS to actually read your resume. It's as simple as that. So get rid of the tables. You can use columns. Like we use columns all the time in our resumes. We use 2-column format. That works like a gem. Most of our applicants that come to our resume writing company come to us because they know they're going to go pretty far in the process. All of our resumes, we write them individually for each applicant, and most applicants get to the interview stage, and that's what we want. We want you to get through so then you can win over the recruiter with your personality and your passion for the job that you're going for. Okay, so don't make it visually hard for the recruiter when they read your resume. Okay, make it easy on the eyes. Think like a recruiter. Save your file in both .doc or .docx, which is for Microsoft Word, or PDF is the two formats that you should save your format in. And obviously you will edit your resume in the future as your career experiences change, as your skills change, as your intention in your career changes. So quite commonly, you will change your job title you're going for. You may change your career objective, your skills, your education. You will update your education. If you want to be successful in your career, you need to keep on learning. So, education is not only formal education. It's not just a bachelor's degree or a certificate. It's also doing those online free courses that you can find, on LinkedIn, for example. Or you might go on Google and you might find some courses that are free or in community-based. Things that build your skills are going to make you attractive to an employer because you show that you're committed to professional development. So it's really important to make sure that you think like a recruiter when you're applying for any kind of job, because recruiters you don't know what the background of the recruiter is. You may have someone that works directly in the industry or in the actual department that you're applying for, or you might actually just get a general recruiter who has a HR background. So you've got to think from both perspectives. How do you make your resume attractive to them? So for me, when I look at resumes, so when we have people that come to our company to apply as, say, a resume writer, I look first of all for, can they write? So are they actually good at English? I look at, do they write in a way that is personalized and it shows that they understand themselves as a job applicant? I look at, does the writer have the ability to write simply but also use appropriate terminology to make their resumes or sound a little bit more advanced? Because we're not going to write too basically, but we still want to write in the everyday language so that a normal person can read the resume and make the decision that that person is suitable for the job. We look for applicants that have a flexibility as a writer. So as a job applicant, you need to be flexible for your career as well. And we look for people that have a passion for what they do, because you know what, money can't buy passion. Let's be honest. I couldn't buy my passion for what I do in resume writing. I've been doing this myself for now 12 years, and I imagine that I will be doing this for the rest of my life because I love it. And so all of our writing team need to have the passion for this industry, because it's something that is very, very specialized, resume writing. And it comes with the ability to write from a business perspective, but also from a self-promotional perspective, because we do sell job seekers on paper. That's what we do. We also train in interview training. So we need to make sure that we can promote the job seekers from a third person perspective. Do you know what I mean? What else makes an attractive resume is not being over the top in terms of the creative side. What we do when we write resumes is we look at the content of the resume and we think, is this person someone we would like to meet because of what we read on paper? And as I said before, our resumes are always honest. They must be honest, because you don't want an employer or recruiter to catch out a job applicant, straight to the point, be honest. So we want them to be honest in their resumes. We want the resumes to be focused on what the person can do and not on their physical characteristics and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's a different story if someone is going for a modeling or TV presenting role, or something that requires you to be, I guess, beautiful. In that case, we will encourage people to make their resumes a little bit more attractive visually, putting a photo in, or, add a little bit extra color, to spruik it up. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean anything if you're going for an accounting job, for example, or if you are going to work in construction. That's a skills-based practical role. So they're going to look for, can you do the actual job that requires nothing about looks, nothing like that. Okay, so keeping your resume really relevant, really specific to the job that you're targeting is an important skill, and you need to show this to your recruiters. What else? I guess having a resume that also is short and to the point, I think is good. So 2 pages, maximum 3, but I would say 2 pages would be what we would do. We used to do resumes back in the past 3 to 4 pages, but we realized the trend is 2 pages to 3, and that's it. And as I said, you don't have to cut off what you can do in your job. You can just put it into 2 columns, and you condense the writing so it's still within the 10 text size, and you can still showcase yourself very effectively. Obviously, when you have your resume too, it's important to have your cover letter as well that's complementary to your resume. So, what we do is we have matching resume and cover letter so that they look like they actually pair together, because you wouldn't submit a resume without a cover letter, okay? Cover letters are like the selling point, a sales pitch on top of the resume. So I have to be honest, when I first applied for my very first job, back in the day when I was 14 and 9 months, which was the legal age you could work, I didn't submit a cover letter, and that cost me that job. So I have learned from experience to always put a cover letter on the front of that resume, because I remember the job advertisement even said a cover letter. But when I was young and a bit silly, I did not think, and I did not put one in. So I learned the lesson, and that's why we always write a cover letter with every single resume that goes out. So you can, copy and paste from your resume career objective some parts and put that into your cover letter. Transfer the education, summarize the employment side of things by just like title and company who you work for. Put that in your cover letter, but make sure it's all fact. Okay, always fact. What else? Making sure that your resume is also not filled with too much jargon, technical jargon, because you know what? As a recruiter, you want to send a resume that the everyday person understands. So unless you're going for a PhD related role or something that's scientifically really technical and the recruiter is going to understand the language that you use, by all means, submit a resume that is just simple. Like you want a resume that people know what you're talking about, okay? You want to use language that is everyday based. You don't need to use like simple, like instead of the word I can do something, you could say I am able to execute. So it's a little bit fancier word, but it shows that you have a stronger command of the English language. But don't fill your resume with too much jargon, okay? Because that bores the readers. You want them to know that you can do the job. It's all about the right fit for the right person at the right time for the right job. And that's how you position yourself, okay? Also, there's no problem in you sending your resume out to as many recruiters as you can, as many companies as you can. But my word of advice is to make sure your resume is relevant to the jobs you're applying for and the industry that you're applying for, and your cover letter is tailored to the individual employers that you are actually applying to, okay? So that means that you need to fine-tune those details and add in the employer's details. If the job title is slightly different, make sure it's got it there. So for example, HR assistant could also be HR officer, but remember the job advertisement is going to have that HR assistant, HR officer. So make sure there is a match, because these ATS, the applicant tracking systems, are going to be looking for these little holes. What else? make sure that you like your resume as well. So when you write your resume, read it a couple of times over before you dare submit it online or you post it to a company. Because if you don't like it, how are you supposed to have a recruiter to like your resume? So make sure you're proud of what you are actually submitting to the companies, you know. For me, when we have our resumes, I am the last eyes before that resume goes to our client. So I have a writing team that drafts the resumes, and I'm normally at the front and end of the resume writing process, but I see everything that goes out. And for me, I have to fine tooth everything and look at the resumes from a perspective of a HR manager or a recruiter, and I think, are they going to like this or are they going to hate it? And then I fine tune it. Because I have to pick up on these little issues, and that's why in our service at Exceptional Tuition and Resumes, we do give our applicants 2 drafts worth. So if they want to add some changes or something that they think they can improve, they can request that for us, and we will actually make that change for them, because we want you as job applicants to have the best chance to find employment. And you know, you can ace the interview, absolutely you can, but we just need to make sure that you look good on paper to get past the first stage of the recruitment process. So that's kind of how I have to be. I have to be like a shark or a hawk, actually a hawk, and I've got to find the weaknesses and improve your resumes, okay? Because we want you to succeed. This is our goal as a resume writing company, to help you succeed. What else can I say? The career objective section, I think, is absolutely vital. You need to be straight to the point in terms of what is the role that you're applying for. You don't need to mention the company you're applying for, but get it right that of which job title you're targeting. So that should show straight away the level of employment. Because let's take, for example, we deal with nurses. We're not going to send a AIN who's just trained as an AIN and experienced as an AIN to become a CN, which is a clinical nurse. We're not going to do that, because clearly the AIN cannot do that role until later in their career when they train as a registered nurse and have a few years experience under their belt. So be specific in the job title and the level you're going for. Make sure you mention the industry or what capacity you want to work in within your career objective section. Full-time, part-time, casual, contractor. Which one do you want to work at? Do you want to work from home? Because, this is a post-COVID era, so work from home. Do you want flexible working arrangements? Do you want to work in a particular city? Are you happy to travel out of the Queensland or out of Victoria? Can you do FIFO or Dido? Why do you want the job? What is it about that particular job title and that industry and those clients that you love? As I said before, passion. Oh my goodness, passion. You need to sell your passion along with what you bring to the job in terms of your skills, your experience, and your knowledge. So making sure that you are a whole package. And also, if you have a bit of experience under your belt, it's worthwhile mentioning that little bit of experience in your career objective, okay? Because you want to be the best person for the job. And that's why we really focus on you in that first paragraph as the career objective. So I think that's a nice little summary for you today. So we've talked about quite heavily the ATS, the applicant tracking systems, and how you beat the systems with a compliant resume. We've talked about little tips in how to make your resume attractive, both in a content way, but also physically, okay? And also the importance of having a nice cover letter on top, because you can't send your resume out with a cover letter unless it says in the advertisement. That's the only exception, but otherwise as a general rule, 1-page cover letter should be sufficient. So we are Exceptional Tuition and Resumes, and we are a professional writing agency here in Australia. We can help job seekers in all industries. We focus on nursing and construction, because that's obviously what we do absolutely best, but we can help any job applicant in any industry at any level. All we need is your job description, your old resume, and any other details that you can provide for us, and we can put together a fantastic resume, cover letter, selection criteria, or we also do interview training skills. So My name is Monique Jeremiah. I'm the director, and I thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best in your career from Exceptional Tuition and Resumes.